So I realized I had not recorded an episode lately, and I decided to go ahead and invite y'all in to join me for LunchHammer40K, which is where you take your lunch break and you work on some 40K. So I am currently working on my Adeptus Mechanicus faction. As y'all know, that was my whole journey, that I'm trying to create an AdMech force, right? So the goal is to go ahead, purchase, build, and paint a 2,000 point army for Adeptus Mechanicus. It took me a while to figure out a color scheme that I actually like, but I'm currently working on my Skitarii to go ahead and paint them. I'm really not the best painter, and this is more of an encouragement to everyone who wants to get involved, who isn't a great painter, that this is still a lot of fun, and you can do a really good job even if you're not a great painter. So right now, they're at a bit of an ugly duckling stage. I'm applying some Royal Cloak Blue by Army Painter. So you don't have to be faction loyal to any one miniature paint. People ask me all the time, what's the difference between this and just regular acrylics paint? And from smarter people than me, the answer is the pigmentation is designed to actually work with miniatures. So I do recommend using actual miniature paint, whether you use Citadel or Army Painter or Vallejo. There's a bunch of others out there, but those are the three brands that I'm most familiar with and I try to utilize. So, and as far as paintbrushes, this came from a hobby store. It's not the greatest paintbrush. I do need some other ones, and I have a few other ones, but that look like this, that are much nicer, that are actually like mini paintbrushes that my wife gifted to me that I accidentally left at home, so I'm using my backup paintbrushes here at the office on my lunch break. But the downside is the brushes that you use actually do make a major difference. People like to think that that wouldn't make a big difference, but the paints and the brushes that you choose to utilize do make a difference in the outcome. Now, I am by no means an expert when it comes to painting, so I will not really be offering you huge painting tutorials here. You will never find that as a aspect of my game, because like I said, painting is probably the weakest part of my game. But that actually might be helpful, because sometimes the internet is loaded up with experts going ahead and showing themselves doing the expert level things, and you try to follow along, and as an amateur it's like, oh my god, I suck. So maybe seeing someone who also sucks going ahead and having fun will help make the difference for you, so you'll be willing to give it a try. But as you can see, the paint scheme, which if you've been following on my Instagram stories, you've seen, and I'll of course post like some reels over there and show the stages and the steps that I went through to get to where I am, and hopefully the end result, which will hopefully look nice. But there was a video, because I've been looking for a different sort of AdMech scheme. As much as I like the traditional, very lovely red Martian scheme that you see a lot of people do, with good reason, because it really does look very cool. I wanted to go with a different color scheme. So instead, I went with a more teal look for the cloak and the robe, which came out a little bit softer than what I was anticipating, because I think the white undercoat that I put on there kind of softened it a little bit, but that's okay. It's still very nice, and I could always put another coat on there if I decide to after I'm done with it. And in the next squad of Skitarii, I might try to try a couple different undercoats just to see if there's a better shade to get this teal on to make it pop a little bit more. But it still is looking pretty nice, to me at least. But the I wanted to, for the body, create kind of a brass look for it, of aged brass, because Skitarii are, you know, robots after all. So I wanted to do like an aged brass look that has like the brass and then the green patina. I think I'm pronouncing that one right. where it looks like a monument or a statue that just came to life. And so that's what I'm hoping to pull off. And I've been trying to think of how to do that and what colors to use. And I really like this royal cloak, and I wanted to use it. I'd seen it on some minis and really thought it was very nice. So I was like, okay, I can try that out. And then on the YouTube, I saw, because I looked up painting Skitaris and painting AdMech, and a gentleman by the name of War Hipster shared a speed tutorial on how to speed paint an Adeptus Mechanicus army of a ghostly theme. And I watched that video and then watched it and rewatched it and rewatched it and rewatched it and rewatched it because it was really good and I was really digging what was in there. And it laid out this really great theme that I rather liked, that I thought, you know, though his was different than what the end result that I was looking for, but I was just using another brush to get off some excess paint. There's a trick there for you. Follow my Patreon for more. I'm kidding, I don't have a Patreon, but I respect those who do. His had a black base to it, and then had the green highlights and a nice mint green coat and everything. Whereas I want to do a little bit more of a bluish color coat. And for my, the trick is trying to get the inside of that. This is probably easier to paint if it wasn't already on the base, but I wanted to go ahead and like build them completely all the way to the base. Otherwise I knew I was gonna stall out in my process. So, you know, live and learn. This is the first set that I'm actually painting in this scheme. So for future builds, I might do slightly different things just to try them out. I saw that, and I saw what they were doing, and I thought that was really cool, and that it could be adapted a bit to what I was trying to do. So I started off with Rune Lord Brass as the original coat, and they look so sharp with that. I was worried that me putting paints on the coat would be awful, but it started with Rune Lord Brass and as the primer, and then went from there. I applied a heavy-handed dry brush of Sotek Green, which, if you're familiar with the color, it's a Citadel color, and it is actually kind of blue. But went with that, and then from the Sotek Green, applied a complete shade of Coelia Nightshade. Coelia? I'm sure someone out there knows how to pronounce it, but with all science fiction and fantasy names, as long as you say it like you actually know what you're thinking and saying, normally most people are happy. But I went from there to next applying a oh, and for the record, I normally don't like the shades. I've had Null Oil and I've avoided using it just because I don't like the effect it has on the minis, but I like the Coelia Nightshade, so that one might become a regular thing in most of my minis. It just gave it a nice hue to it, and it was fun to use. So I went from there to do a coating of white on the cloak to bring out the teal, or Royal Cloak Blue, which appropriately the Royal Cloak is actually named Royal Cloak, and I'm putting it on cloaks. I thought that was ironic, for those of you who are fans of Alanis Morissette. But the next step after I'm done with this, which I still have the rest of the squad to do, I've done 3 so far, 1, and let's get a little stand here so maybe you can see these guys when 1, 2, and 3. So the next step will be to go back to the bodies and actually touch those up with probably some Kraken Skin green, and then follow that with a little bit of brass, the top off those cables and the metallic parts, so that way it kind of keeps that brass feel to it, and it's kind of an aged brass. See, they have the white undercoat, and then I'm applying the royal cloak. Because like I said, I want these to feel kind of like ancient machine monsters that have stepped out of an ethereal realm to come and do battle. So that's the goal. Whether it translates well or not is a whole nother matter, because as stated, the paint aspect of the hobby is probably one of my weakest parts of it.